Hello, everyone. I am here today joined by my current client, Sara. And we thought we would not wait until the end of our coaching container to actually do a testimonial and reflect on the journey she has come so far. It is going to continue, but it's also nice to just have like a grounding, anchoring in between to look at how far she has already come and what else might be in store for her, and to give you an impression of what it could be like to work with me if you think I could be someone to support you in your life, in your menstrual health and your menopausal health through any sort of life transition. So thank you, Sara, for agreeing or even suggesting this idea of an interim testimonial.
You're very welcome.
Let's start where you were when we started 2 months ago, because folks, we have agreed on working together for 3 months and then just seeing where the journey wants to take us. And we've been working for 2 months, and so much can happen in 2 months. So if you remember, where were you at when you came to me?
Yes. So really, Lisa, I was at a complete crossroads, except there didn't seem to be, whereas a crossroads would normally have some sort of clear pointers, some clear signs about what the choices were, with which way to go. For me, those I was at the crossroads, but the signposts just weren't there. And it felt to me like I was just sort of staring into an abyss, really. Just, this sort of, all I could see ahead of me was just this empty space. I wouldn't necessarily say a dark, empty space, but just an empty space of, I'm at this crossroads. I have to make some really big decisions in my life now going forward. But really just needed some help to be able to trust myself with knowing which direction to go in. So that's where I was at. I had just recently closed a business. My son has left home, really, so a bit of empty nesting going on there as well. So yeah, needing to make some big decisions in my life about where to go from here, but feeling powerless to know where to start looking.
Mm. Yeah, and that's often this thing, the future is unknown. And that can feel scary, even though it's not dark. There is also possibility, but it's good to have someone by your side so you're not so alone. And I guess that was why you reached out in the end. And
Yes.
maybe why me?
Yeah, so obviously I'd had the pleasure of meeting you before. We did a little summit. You invited me to be a guest on your summit. Then we had the storytelling circle, which was terrific. And I've just had a real sense from you that I just love how passionate you are about what you do, and how you help women. But you're also very compassionate as well, actually, like on a one-to-one within the sessions. So I get from you just the right combination of a gentle approach, but nevertheless a very guiding, a very a kind of a gentle strength I get from you, and I need that. That's what I need. If someone presented to me as very right, come on, we're gonna do this, and that would unsettle me. That would unsettle me. So I know that I need a certain type of approach, and I get that from you. And I sensed that from you the very first time we met, actually. So yeah.
Thank you. And in fact, we've only met 4 times for coaching. It was every other week. And what would you say, what have you seen and realized in yourself so far? What has shifted in these 2 months?
Gosh, where to start? I'd say if I really had to sort of sum it up, what I've really come to realize is, one, probably how strong I already am, but I wasn't connected with that. I wasn't connecting to that. But also the soul-based coaching in particular. I have such a visual, I didn't know anything about soul-based coaching before, so I was intrigued to find out what it was about. But I now have such a visual blueprint of myself. And so over a couple of sessions, we were able to, I left the session with a visual blueprint of where I was in my life at that time, and where I felt kind of comfortable and what was my sort of safe place. And then we moved it on a step further to the journey. Like, could I see where I wanted to get to, and what would that sort of transition look like? And then in the last session, arriving somewhere. So I have 3 really clear visual blueprints, literally pictures that I created in my mind, but with your guidance and your support, and the meditative practices that we go on through that, so in that soul-based coaching session. So for me, being a visual learner and a visual thinker, to have those images now, which I know will stay with me for the rest of my life, and I'm really going to liken it to, it's like having a fresco picture, but for my soul. That's how I feel. I feel that if my soul was a fresco painting where it tells a story, and you can follow and see the story, that's what I now have, and that is amazing. And I didn't know before we started the coaching. I had no idea that I would leave the sessions with something so powerful. And truly, I know those images will stay with me. So,
and that's the amazing thing. They come from within you. Like, I did not, and I just want to make that clear, because some people might not understand the depth and benefit of soul-based coaching, is that I only ask questions that are non-directive. Like, well, of course, I place your attention on certain aspects that I know will lead you where you need to go, but I'm asking questions that are non-invasive, that don't bring in my own interpretation. So I can always trust that these images, they have been inside of you. And that's why I say the power and the wisdom, they lie inside of you. And I just have to ask a few questions, and suddenly you become aware of it.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's because those images came from within me. That's why I know they will stay with me for the rest of my life. If they had been someone else's images, I wouldn't see them so clearly, and I wouldn't remember them so clearly.
And maybe has also something changed in your like actual life circumstances? Because so far we've talked about this inner sense of feeling lost and in front of this big gaping empty space. But what has changed in your day-to-day life so far?
Yeah. So what I'm sort of sensing about myself now and feeling about myself is, I would say that I can definitely hold my space more effectively. I really feel like my feet are on the ground now. I feel that connection, because I can feel that connection more strongly now, with the earth, and feeling the earth under my feet. That gives me the strength to stand in my space and to hold my space better, even when that sometimes feels uncomfortable. So I'm someone who had weak boundaries before, people-pleasing tendencies, things that are very common. Certainly people that that are empathic or would identify themselves as being empathic often show up as having weak boundaries and people-pleasing tendencies. So that is my natural default position. But I feel now, because I can stand in my space with more strength, that I can sit with uncomfortable feelings now, even in the presence of someone else that maybe has or had the ability to trigger uncomfortable feelings in me. I just find I can sit with those uncomfortable feelings now more effectively. Still a work in progress. It will be for a long time, but I know now that I can do it, and I'm learning the skills to be able to do that. The skills are by having that stronger sense of myself, that I'm then able to, I have the courage to stand in my space more with more effect. Yeah.
If I may reflect that back, especially from our last session, this, you know your truth, you know what you want. And now you also know how to hold the others lovingly when they disagree with what you want or want to question, because you understand they want to protect you. They possibly also want to protect themselves. And you nonetheless can go after what you want for your life.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. And that was, that was the main reason that I came to you, and the main thing that I knew that I needed support with was being able to trust, firstly, learning how to connect inwardly, because I've always found that very, very difficult. So I'm learning how to do that. And yeah. And so from that, I knew that I needed help to really trust in myself. And that's where those visual images are so helpful. Because I know now, even when I start to waver, or I can hear the other voices, either in my head or because they're real. Yeah, it was needing to be able to connect with what I want and what I need. And as you say, lovingly still holding those people and those voices, but knowing that I need to listen to my own voice.
What difference would you say has it made to have me by your side in going through such a process? Because I like to say, hey, I fully believe that you can do these things on your own. And also it can be easier when there's someone by your side. But what was your experience of having someone by your side?
Yes, well, I've tried it both ways. So I've been interested in self-help for a very long time, but especially in the last 5 or 6 years. And I had already done quite a lot of self-help, but I'd only managed to get, the self-help had really been around identifying that I had weak boundaries, the people-pleasing tendencies. So I had learnt to recognize all of that. I had learnt through self-help to recognize narcissistic behavior, because that's been something that has impacted my life hugely. But I hadn't been able to get any further. And I recognized that I hadn't been able to get any further, because although I had this knowledge about myself, I didn't know how to use that to propel myself forwards into what it is that I really want. So having you there, it's like I sort of have a magnetic pathway now. So that's the influence that you've had for me. So sort of helping me to create this pathway, but it's like a magnetic pathway. So when I drift or when I wander from it, it's like that pathway is there now, kind of pulling me back onto the right path for me. And I also have ADHD, so that's a diagnosis that I've had in the last 12 months. So I'm easily distracted. I could quite easily, I did spend most of my days doing a bit of this and a bit of that, but never really being focused for too long on any one thing. So having you there helps to keep me focused, because I know we've got a session coming up. And after a session, you will send me an email with like a summary of what we've achieved in that lesson, and some little play work exercises to see me through for the next session. You'll also check in on me, which is fantastic, because again, I need that, partly because I can get distracted. Well, I do a lot. But also because I think I've spent so long feeling on my own with all of this, feeling alone with all of this. And on the one hand, I think I became very resilient. So I've always actually had a very strong relationship with myself. I just haven't known to trust it. There's a big difference. So yeah, so having you there helps. It helps to keep me on track, but it also helps from the validation perspective. I feel validated every time I turn up to a session with you, because I know that you always say all of you is welcome. And whatever I turn up with, however I arrive to that session, if I'm feeling anxious or triggered, or, however I'm feeling, you welcome all of that. And just even that is just so validating.
Yeah. And I like to say that, like, there is some sort of healing that can only happen with another person, that cannot happen on your own, because the wound that was inflicted came in relationship with another person. So you need a different relationship to help it heal.
That makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. And we've got another month to go. Let's see what that's going to be about.
Wow.
Because, for me, my best testimonial is when someone says, Lisa, I think I don't need you anymore. So there is, while it's good to have someone that you can lean on for a while and that propels you forward, I also know that there will come a time when okay, and now it's time to continue on my own. Knowing that if in the future anything happens, you can come back, but you can trust yourself and you can basically untether yourself from me and move on your own.
Yeah. It feels sad. That feels like a sad thought, but at the same time, I recognize what you're saying. It's like learning to swim, isn't it? And you don't need to float anymore, but the float is still there if you still need it.
Yeah, and because we need each other, we are social creatures. Like, it would always be that we need each other to mirror each other, to reflect, to validate, to just enjoy the company.
Yeah.
And so from your perspective right now, who would you recommend me to, or in which situations would you recommend working with me?
Yeah. I would love everyone to be able to work with you, but you wouldn't be able to share yourself around with everybody. I would say anyone who is in a similar situation to myself. I don't think it's at all uncommon for women in midlife, maybe men too, but I'm a woman. Women in midlife to find themselves at this crossroads, especially women who have also got a neurodivergent diagnosis that's on the increase, often because they have a child that goes through the process of assessment and they realize that they're exactly the same. So anyone who like me has maybe started that journey of looking inward for some answers and some guidance, but hasn't been able to get much further than that. And you explained it so well just then, that actually it often, the type of healing that's needed in order to then move forwards actually does require the input from or the assistance of another person. Yeah.
Also,
So
presence, the physical
present,
presence
yes,
of
yes,
a compassionate person.
yes, a witness. You know, I hadn't thought of it that way until you used that word when we first worked together. And truly, I will, you know, I really want to say, even having my own words reflected back to me, but having them reflected back to me by another voice, and maybe putting a slightly different emphasis on a word, or that is very powerful. So I know they're my words, but hearing them from someone else gives me permission to believe them. And it's sad that we don't believe our own voices, but so often we don't.
Well, yeah, society, huh?
Yes. So I could recommend you to everybody, but certainly anybody in my shoes that has found themselves needing, at a point in their life where something needs to shift, something needs to change, there's some big decisions to make, and yeah, just having that support to find the courage to trust our own wisdom about what's right for us.
Yeah. Thank you. So in case you who is listening or watching are intrigued or interested, I am a menstrual and menopausal health specialist, and I call myself a confidant through life transitions. Because what I found is that very often the life transitions we go through are very much connected to our menstrual health or menopausal health, because it's these moments where one version of ourselves needs to go, or parts of ourselves need to die, in order to make space for something even better. Doesn't mean the others were not good or not enjoyable, but it's time for something even better. And so often it's these moments of deep crisis, spiritual crisis, psycho-emotional crisis, miscarriage, sexuality, as you said, emptiness, but also becoming a parent in the first place. And then the biggest of all, or one of the biggest, the perimenopausal transition, into finding your place in society, or like not in society, but in your community, becoming clear on how you want to bring your gifts to the world, because you do have them. Those moments are all connected to our cycle, to our cyclical nature. And that's, I consider myself to be a space holder for the dark and the taboo. So these things that aren't often talked about in society, I found my clients feel very safe with anything. I've lately been called a taboo-free zone, which I enjoyed very much. Would you agree that that's one of the things that also maybe drew you to me.
Oh, definitely. And I think one of the reasons why I found it so hard to reach out for help before is because I need to feel so safe. Because I have a nervous system that is very sensitive and very easily triggered. So I've learned to become, or I have naturally become, very, what's the word, vigilant, sort of on high alert all the time. So for me I need to feel very, very safe in order to really go inward. I know from those visual blueprints that I was able to create, those for me are the evidence of how safe I must have felt.
Amazing. So in case you would like to get in touch, you can, of course, browse my website, have a look at my blog, and listen to my podcast episodes to just get a feel for me and for my thought processes, but also the way I hold space. And if you think that I could be the one supporting you through a moment of crisis or of transition, book your free consultation. I'm always happy to even just point you to some further resources if working with me is not the best step for you at that moment, but do reach out. I would love to connect. Thank you so much, Sara, for this amazing testimonial.
No, you're welcome.
And see you in our next coaching session.
Yes. Yeah.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.